You're crouched beside a fire. It's 800,000 years ago. No stove, no fridge, no app on a screen telling you dinner's 10 minutes away. Quick question. Why do you think early humans started cooking their food? If you said, because raw meat tastes bad, probably wrong. If you said, to kill germs and stay safe, also wrong. Nobody crouched over a fire a million years ago had ever heard the word germ. The real reason is bigger than taste, bigger than safety. It might be the single biggest reason your brain is the size it is, right now, while you're listening to this. Sounds strange. Fire turning raw meat into dinner, somehow building a bigger brain? Here's the thing nobody tells you. It's true, and once you see how it actually works, you'll never look at your stove the same way again. Let's start with how hard raw food actually is to eat. Not gross hard, physically hard. Watch chimpanzees, our closest living animal relatives, and you'll see it right away. They spend almost half of every single day just chewing. Not hunting, not playing, chewing. 6 hours a day roughly, which is basically a part-time job, except the paycheck is a slightly mashed up leaf. And here's the bigger problem hiding underneath all that chewing. Raw meat is tough and stringy. Raw starchy foods, like a raw potato, are locked up so tightly your stomach can barely touch them. So even after all that effort, your body only pulls out a small slice of the actual energy hiding inside that food. The rest just passes straight through you, wasted. Then cooking shows up, and it changes everything. Heat meat and the tough fibers holding it together break apart. Softer. Easier to chew, easier to swallow, easier for your stomach to actually use. Heat a starchy food like a potato, and something even stranger happens on a level too small to see. The starch itself changes shape, turning into something your body can finally unlock. Scientists have measured this directly. The exact same food, cooked instead of raw, hands your body noticeably more usable energy. Same ingredient, more fuel, just because it got hot. This isn't just a fun kitchen fact. For millions of years, that difference was the gap between survival and not. Every extra bit of usable energy, day after day, was the difference between a mother who could keep making enough milk for her baby and one who couldn't. Between an elder who could still keep up with the group and one who got left behind. So think about what that means for whoever figured this out first. Suddenly, the same amount of food is handing them more fuel than before. And that extra fuel had to go somewhere. Here's where it gets genuinely wild. Your brain, sitting inside your head right now, is an absolute energy hog. It's only about 2% of your entire body weight, but it burns through roughly 20% of all the energy your whole body uses. Just to think, just to keep your heart beating and your thoughts running in the background while you watch this video. A brain that expensive needs serious, reliable fuel, and for millions of years, our ancestors simply didn't have any extra energy lying around to spend on a bigger one. Every bit of fuel was already busy just keeping the body alive. A scientist named Wrangham has spent decades studying exactly this idea. He calls it the cooking hypothesis. Extra usable energy from the exact same food meant there was suddenly a little fuel left over, and bit by bit, over hundreds of thousands of years, evolution appears to have poured a good chunk of that leftover fuel straight into building bigger, smarter brains. There's a trade-off buried in here too, and scientists have a name for it. They call it the expensive tissue idea. As brains got bigger, guts got smaller. Digesting raw food needs a long, powerful gut working overtime, all day, every day. But once cooking fire started doing part of that job outside the body, that huge gut simply wasn't necessary anymore. Smaller gut, freed up energy, bigger brain. The fire outside your body basically became a second stomach. It didn't stop there. Cooking even changed your face. Older human ancestors carried huge, heavy jaws and giant back teeth, built for grinding tough raw plants for hours on end. Once cooked food started doing that grinding work for them, jaws that powerful simply weren't needed. Over time, jaws shrank. Teeth shrank too, which sounds small until you realize a smaller jaw leaves more room inside the skull. And a skull with a little extra room has a little extra space for exactly one thing. There's another piece of this that's easy to miss. Time. Remember that 6-hour-a-day chewing job? Cooked food doesn't need nearly as much of it. So once cooking became a habit, humans got hours of the day back. Hours they could now spend making better tools, teaching a kid how to throw a spear, or just sitting still, thinking. It's hard to build a tool, a story, or a friendship in the middle of 6 straight hours of chewing. So when did all of this actually start? This is where it gets messy, because fire doesn't leave behind a receipt. But there's real proof. At a place called Wonderwerk Cave in South Africa, scientists found burnt bone and ash dating back roughly 1 million years, sealed deep inside the cave in a way that only happens from a fire someone built and kept going on purpose. Not lightning, not a wildfire that wandered in, a fire someone made and tended. Here's the strange part. The humans doing this weren't even Homo sapiens yet. This was an earlier version of us called Homo erectus, smaller brain, heavier brow, somehow smart enough to figure out one of the single most important tricks in our entire history, long before anyone who looked like you existed. So was cooking invented on purpose, or was it an accident that just kept happening until someone finally decided to keep it going? Picture this. A wildfire tears through, lit by lightning. Afterward, some exhausted, starving early human wanders through the smoking, blackened landscape and spots a dead animal caught in the flames. They're hungry enough not to care how it looks. They take a bite anyway. And they stop, because it's good, softer, easier to chew, a little sweeter than they expected, honestly, for something that used to be running around an hour ago. That one accidental bite might have been enough, because once you've tasted cooked meat, raw again probably feels like a downgrade. So slowly, generation after generation, humans stopped just eating whatever food happened to catch fire and started keeping fire around on purpose. And cooking didn't just rebuild bodies, it rebuilt how humans lived together. Before fire, once the sun went down, that was it. Dark, cold, dangerous, time to hide and wait it out. Fire flipped that completely. Light after dark, warmth when it turned cold. A small, safe circle where predators thought twice before wandering in. So people started gathering around it. And once a group of people are sitting together at night with nothing urgent left to do, something interesting starts happening. People talk. Researchers who study hunter-gatherer groups today have actually noticed this. Daytime conversation tends to be practical, where the food is, who did what. But at night, around a fire, talk shifts toward stories, myths, gossip about people outside the group. Basically the world's first group chat, except everyone's actually paying attention because there's nothing else to look at. In other words, the campfire might have been one of the very first classrooms and one of the very first theaters, wrapped into a single glowing circle of light. Cooking changed what was even safe to eat, too. Plenty of wild plants are genuinely dangerous raw, loaded with toxins that heat quietly destroys. Once cooking entered the picture, entire new food sources opened up. More food, less risk of it making you sick, which meant more energy, and a better shot at surviving long enough to pass all of this down. So let's pull this together. Cooking was never just a nice little upgrade to how food tasted. It rewired human biology from the inside out. More energy from the same food. That leftover energy fueled a bigger, hungrier brain. Smaller guts followed. Smaller jaws and teeth followed. And the simple habit of gathering around a fire every single night may have quietly built the very first foundations of human storytelling and culture. All of it, possibly starting with one accidental, unforgettable bite of something that used to be a wildfire. So next time you flip on a stove or watch something sizzle in a pan, remember what's actually happening. You're not just making dinner. You're feeding the exact same fire that built the human brain in the first place. That fire is still burning. It's just inside your skull now.